Hello learners and viewers, welcome to this session. Today's topic is gender-based violence. This topic is part of the program BA Gender Studies. You all know that learners who are enrolled in BA Gender Studies as well as other BA program, this course is very important. This topic related to gender-based violence is part of the course BGDG 172. The learners who have enrolled in this course, you must have gone through the course material. In that course material, in the beginning, in the block 1 itself, we have introduced various concepts related to gender. In that, you must be gone through that what is gender-based violence, gender and sexualities, masculinities, how gender operates in everyday life, as well as we have discussed how this gender can interrelate, like how gender operates within the various social structure, for example, gender and family, gender and work, how like health and gender, like that. This unit, this topic is related to the unit 11, that is titled as gender-based violence. Same with that same title, I would like to explain to our learners who have enrolled in our BA program, as well as specifically many of you have enrolled in the BA Gender Studies offered by the School of Gender and Development Studies. You like when you talk about gender-based violence, what will it come to your mind immediately? Is what it comes to your mind is that it is one of the widespread and socially tolerated violence prevalent in the society. It is a widespread and persistent challenge in India linked directly to the patriarchy. Now you must be wondering, what is patriarchy? Patriarchy is defined as rule of male or father. It is considered as an institution. The patriarchal institution, they will perpetuate various kinds of violence and they try to dominate, mostly male, they try to dominate female, and they think that the female they have to be in a subordinate positions. That is what we have socialized how do we socialized? We have socialized in a certain way that male always have to be dominant and female they should be in a subordinate positions. So here when you talk about the patriarchy, here the power relations it's operate at different levels in the society, and thus due to these power relations and the male, they try to control the female. That's why they try to discriminate female and girls at all levels. Whether immediately the girl child is born, most of the time the family as an institutions, they may not be feel happy. If the male child, then immediately entire family will celebrate. If the female child, they may not be feel happy. Like that it starts. Once the child is born, the discrimination starts. The later part of the life, even the children also, they may face certain kinds of gender-based violence. In this later part of their life, they may face various kinds of violence at various levels. Like it's a widespread and persistent challenge in India, and as I have mentioned, it is directly linked to patriarchy and its foundational belief that men have the privilege and power to inflict violence upon one. That is the main reason. They think that we have socialized that thought, how the male they got this thought is that we have socialized in a certain way that the male members they could able to control the female at every levels, whether their mobility or like the decision making. Even most of the time the female they are not allowed to take decisions. Thus this subordination, it is rooted in women's status. It's linked to the institutions of patriarchy as well as concept of masculinity, that a real man is one who inflicts violence against women. Like that masculine concept, even our media and in all the institutions, they try to portray male as a masculine figure, and they could able to do whatever they wish to do. that even they could able to control the female. That is the main reason that here the violence starts. When we talk about gender-based violence, it's a major obstacles in women's enjoyment of their human rights as well as fundamental rights as guaranteed by the Indian Constitution. As we all know that the Indian Constitution, it doesn't discriminate individual based on their sex, whether it's a male, female. The Constitution has given an equal rights, but due to the socialization process and patriarchal values, we try to discriminate female. Just because they are female, they get discriminated. Like with this introduction, the objective of this session is that specifically this lecture I have prepared from Unit 11 of the course BG-DG 172. Objective of this session is to know the concept of gender-based violence, that I will explain. The second objective is to illustrate forms of gender-based violence and the extent of their prevalence in India and elsewhere. These are the two main objectives of today's session. Before I explain further about gender-based violence, I would like to give definition for the term gender-based violence. The term gender-based violence is used to distinguish violence that targets individual or groups of individual on the basis of their gender from other forms of violence by individual and collectivities. It includes acts that result in or likely to result in physical, sexual and psychological harm. Due to this violence, the female, they may face physical violence or sexual violence, or sometimes they were violence psychologically, they will be harassed. So the various kinds of violence they face due to the gender-based violence. The threats of such acts, like if they face, the female, if they face any kinds of violence, what happens is that because of this violence, coercion or arbitrary deprivation of liberty are also forms of gender-based violence. If someone is curtailed female's liberty, that is also gender-based violence. If they try to deprive female to access various institutions or resources, that is also one form of gender-based violence. Such gender-based violence might occur within the family. Many of individual, they may face the violence within a family, in the community during peace times or times of conflict or state agents. This gender-based violence may arise from any institutions, anywhere it will come, and the women, they may face violence from any institutions. That is what happening. It may this kind of violence perpetrated by family members, acquaintances, strangers, or even sometimes intimate partners also, they face gender-based violence. While violence is it's really a very traumatic experience for anyone, whether it's a male also, sometimes they face violence, or female also they face violence. Whoever they face violence, it's really a very traumatic experience. Gender-based violence is predominantly inflicted by men on women. That difference you need to understand that. There are each and every individual in the society, they may face some kinds of violence. But when we talk about gender-based violence, is predominantly inflicted by men on women and girls by reason of their gender. Just because they are female or just because they are girls, they may face certain kinds of violence. That's why we call it as gender-based violence. It impacts women's dignity, security, sexuality, reproductive capacity and their right to control of their own body. Whether even they may not able to take their decisions on their own, apart from its overarching impact on physical, mental health of the women. Thus, gender-based violence stems from the power inequality between men and women, exacerbated by socio-economic, cultural and structural inequalities. Here, we need to, as learners of BA Gender Studies as well as learners of other BA program, you must have come across the another term that is called the violence against women. There is a thin line that distinguish between violence against women as well as gender-based violence. I would like to explain these two terms for our learners to make them to get more clarity. Like when we talk about the violence against women, it includes any act of gender-based violence against women and girls. But when we specifically talk about the gender-based violence, it acknowledges the gender dimensions of violence, both from the perspective of perpetrators as well as victims. These difference you must understand. That's why I explained you there is a thin line of distinction exists between gender-based violence and violence against women, though these two terms, when we talk about these two terms, both the terms, it talks about the violence against women, but there is a thin distinction between these two terms. Like when we talk about violence against women, it also talks about the gender-based violence and violence on women. But when we specifically talk about the gender-based violence, we clearly acknowledging that there is a gender dimensions in that particular violence. That is, we need to acknowledge. When we talk more about gender-based violence, it reflects and reinforces inequities between men and women and compromises the health, dignity and security and autonomy of its victims. That we need to understand. The next one is that it encompasses the wide range of human rights violations. Gender-based violence is faced predominantly but not exclusively by women and girls. Men and boys too are sometimes targeted. Sometimes male also, they faced certain kinds of violence that we need to acknowledge, but there are less and less study about the violence inflicted on male and the boys. Though this, like whatever we talk about the how the male and boys are facing the violence, but that is the very negligible percentage that we need to understand. Second is that there should be more study we need to conduct to know about the violence faced by the male and the boys. That we need to do more study related to this. That's why when we talk about the men's and boys are also sometimes they targeted for gender-based violence. The extent to which gender-based violence impacts them is not clearly known. That we need to understand. Next is that violence against lesbians, gay, bisexuals and transgender people also part of the gender-based violence. That is also a result of the tension between mainstream and alternative understandings and practices related to sexuality. That we need to understand. Like learners, like if you look at the block 1 and block 2, we have clearly explained about the in a very basic manner, we have explained about the sexuality. If you go through those units, you could clearly understand that. While acknowledging the prevalence of gender-based violence against members of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender community in India, it is the serious human rights violations perpetrated on members of the community. But this unit as well as today's lecture, clearly we were discussing only about the gender-based violence on women and girls. We are not talking more about the violence experienced by the LGBT community. Maybe some other lecture we could able to discuss all those issues. Let me now explain the categories of gender-based violence. The UN Special Rapporteur on Violence Against Women have categorized forms of violence against women into violence within a family, violence in the community, and violence perpetrated or condoned by the state. These are the 3 different forms of violence faced by the female and the like female children as well as female members in the society. Using these 3 broad terms, violence against women in India can be further disintegrated. That I will explain. First, let me explain violence within a family. Like what kind of violence the women they face in the family is such as domestic violence. You all must have heard about it. If you go through the newspapers also, you must have seen the like various cases related to domestic violence. So first, when we talk about violence in the family, the first thing is that we need to acknowledge that there is a violence within a family, such as domestic violence, sexual abuse of children in the household, dowry related violence, that specifically maybe we can talk about in the context of South Asia. Then rape and incestual rape by the family members, honor crimes, sex selective abortions and female infanticide, female genital mutilation and other traditional practices that are harmful, as well as violence against lesbian, bisexual and transgender people, and violence on sexual and reproductive rights. These are some of the violence we have mentioned today, that is the violence within a family. Like next one is that we need to know about what kind of violence they are facing in the community, violence in the community. This includes rape, sexual abuse, sexual harassment at workplace and other public places, acid throwing, witch hunting, sati, honor crimes, trafficking in women and children, forced prostitution, violence against women with disabilities, communal violence and violence against Adivasi and Dalit women. These are some of the violence inflicted by the community. The last one is that violence perpetrated or condoned by the state. Like even state is the state, sometimes most of the time the state act as a patriarchal institution. The state itself inflict so many violence on its populations. Specifically when we talk about the gender-based violence, that include custodial rapes, torture and killings, gender-based violence in militarized context, violence against women, specifically the violence faced by the migrant workers, refugees and internally displaced persons, communal violence and other context of mass crimes. These are some of the violence perpetrated or condoned by the state. Significant, now we have learnt about like how these institutions and what type of violence faced by the women by these institutions. Now let me see, let me explain forms and magnitude of gender-based violence. For this section, I have taken data from National Crime Records Bureau, that is part of the Ministry of Home Affairs. Let us see how the magnitude of gender-based violence. Gender-based violence has been shrouded by the culture of silence and tolerance for the long time. If someone is facing the violence, most of the time, they don't report because of the existing socialization process. For example, if someone reported about the violence they have faced in a public spaces or workplace or within a family, most of the time due to the existing socialization process and patriarchal attitudes, once the particular individual report about the gender-based violence, that individual may face various kinds of for example, the society may not accept that particular individual. They have to face various issues apart from reporting to the either higher authorities or to the government institutions or police or various institutions. So it is this data, whatever today I am sharing, it is official data has taken from National Crime Records Bureau, but it is difficult to access reliable statistics on the same as the violence is underreported. That is what the existing study clearly pointed out, that most of the time the women, they may not come forward and report it to the reported to the higher authorities or some institutions due to stigma, shame and fear of reprisal. That is what I have explained. The magnitude of gender-based violence in India is indicated by the statistics derived from National Crime Records Bureau. That's what I have explained, the Government of India. These statistics indicate that among all registered cases of serious crimes against women, the largest share, that is 36%, was under domestic violence. That is the largest percentage of crime inflicted on women. Specifically, when we talk about the gender-based violence, it is the domestic violence, that is cruelty by husband and relatives. The next largest share, that is 24%, was assault on women with the intent to outrage her modesty. As well as the report also said that there was a gradual increase in crime figures with a major increase in rape, kidnapping and abduction and assault on women with the intent to outrage their modesty. That is the another one. Like for example, when we look at this data, as well as when you study about the gender-based violence, what happened is that historically women have been perceived as a recipients of chastity, virginity, modesty and honor. That's in the beginning of my lecture. I have explained about how the patriarchy operates. The patriarchal control over women, including sexual violence, has been exercised and justified in the name of protecting the honor of the family and community. Like for example, the women, they were not allowed to take their decisions, like when to get married, how to get married, whether to continue their studies, whether to get married or not get married. That is all those decisions related to their personal, like related to their individual decisions. Most of the time the institutions, family as an institution, these institutions, they may not allow women to take the decisions. Why? Because they think that the women, they are the significant individual to like they should be controlled to protect the honor of the family and the community. This notion has led to the targeting women's bodies through sexual violence to shame and subjugate the women, her family and her community. Like why most of the time, like when they inflict violence on women, many of the times the community as well as other social institutions, they try to justify those. Like that's why even they try to control the freedom, as I have explained in the beginning itself, the choices, and the even most of the communities, they impose dress codes on women, and they have to like what to eat, how to eat, where to like what to study, in which till which age they could able to study. All those things, each and every decisions will be taken by the family, not by the individual women. So if the women, if they try to deviate the whatever the society imposes or family imposes, whatever the like social institutions impose on women, that they are supposed to follow the same thing. If they try to deviate from those impositions, like immediately they may have to face certain kinds of violence. That is the another thing. Like for example, why is there is a sexual violence like a rape? Also, these are the tools the society and various social institutions, if you look at the why the women are facing, specifically why there is a large large number of violence against women. If you look at that, it is a tool. They use their tool to exercise their power, male power on women, to maintain maintain the unequal status quo in the society. That's why if they are the society socialized in a certain way that both male and female think that they are not equal, even though each and every person is an individual. Like there is based on like accepts certain differences, biological differences. There is no difference between the male and female, but we have socialized the individuals in the society. They have socialized in a different way that they cannot consider female as an equal to male members in the society. Like how to maintain this unequal status quo, they use violence as a tool to control the female members in the society. This ideology, whatever I have explained, this ideology shapes the structure of the family, community and the society. It combines the, like it operates in a various ways. Like they try to, like this kind of sexual violence, it is rampant in many societies and many places to control the female mobility, as well as to control the female and to impose certain conditions on the female, that the female, they have to act in a certain way. Like if they deviate the norms prescribed by the society, immediately they use the violence as a tool to control the female members. For example, if you look at that, I have explained that dowry deaths and harassment is highest kind of violence faced by the female members. Like there is no need to talk about these statistics when we talk about the dowry related deaths and harassments. For example, most of the time these kind of harassments are death unreported. Most of the family, most of the females, they don't report it to the police as well as local police stations, whatever they face related to dowry harassments, because like that's why when you look at the data also, it shows in some states, some places, these kind of dowry harassments and deaths, the data will be like shows the very highest number. In some places, one could able to see that there is a very less data related to dowry deaths. The feminists, the scholars who have studied this phenomena, they come to know that most of the time the individuals and family, they don't report related to dowry harassments. Like when you see the increasing number of cases related to dowry harassments, that clearly indicate that stringent and sustained campaign against dowry has a, like government and many other social institutions, they are also trying their best to talk about the dowry related issues, but still the society is not accepting. Many of the women still they are facing various kinds of harassments related to dowries. That's why still the government, it's very important for the government to sensitize individuals related to dowry harassments. Another significant data I would like to give you is that in 2014, almost 44% of all victims were in the age group of 18 to 30 years, whereas 1 in every 100 victims were under 6 years of age. If you look at this data also, the age is not a very significant factor. Even highest number of victims were between the age group of 18 to 30 years, as well as 1 in every 100 victims were under 6 years of age. Like this table will give you certain data related to crime against women in India. This data is from 2015 to 2017. This data has derived from National Crime Records Bureau. Like for example, with regard to rape, 2015 it is 34,651. As well as 2017 it has reduced, but attempt to commit rape, it has also reduced over a period of time. Kidnapping and abduction of women to compel her marriage also it has reduced. So looking at this data, except assault of women with intent to outrage her modesty has been increased. Looking at this data, we could able to come to the conclusion that in some of the aspects, like the crime against women has been reduced over a period of time. Only the one aspects related to assault of women with the intent to outrage her modesty has been increased. Thus, if you look at this data as well as these sessions, you could able to understand that still there is a violence against women persist in the society. It is important for the each and every individual, specifically learners who have enrolled in this program as well as in IGNOU. We must read deeply about these issues, as well as we need to ponder more about these issues to reduce gender-based violence. That is the very significant aspects one has to learn after listening this session. Thank you so much for listening this session. Thank you.